Thank you so much, Rosa, for your kind introduction. Hello, colleagues. We're super happy to be here, Maria, Filancha, and myself, to talk to you a little bit about the multi-stakeholder platform. And as Rosa mentioned, we talked about this at length, and we had the opportunity to exchange with many of our stakeholders, including patients and healthcare professionals and consumers, during the kickoff meeting that we had on the 22nd, 23rd of June. Maybe before I dive in, just to highlight that the report of that meeting was published yesterday, so we can include that in the link for you, for all of you, for those of you maybe that couldn't attend, to have a look at that. And also, we launched the ACT-EU website yesterday, the standalone website for ACT-EU that has a dedicated section also on the multi-stakeholder platform, so you can find information there moving forward. So we'll provide those links to you when we wrap up this discussion. So maybe, thank you, Maria. Maria's already on the case. So multi-stakeholder platform and the advisory group. So as we presented at the meeting, the platform is going to be the vehicle whereby under ACT-EU, regulators and stakeholders can come together and make sure that the regulators in particular and stakeholder groups between themselves are talking, and we are incorporating their views into ACT-EU. So people can come to this platform and voice their views and collaborate so that together, different stakeholder groups with the regulators, including ethics committees, you can work together to improve clinical trials. So there's different elements that can form the platform. So first of all, we have all of the multi-stakeholder events that are under ACT-EU already. So we have a workshop on methodologies coming up in November. We have a workshop on data analytics coming up in January, for example. So we had the workshop last year on decentralized clinical trials. These are ACT-EU multi-stakeholder events and are a key piece to the platform. There's also other ways to engage with stakeholders, where it could be consultations, it could be dedicated surveys, it could be the creation of a reference group to support a priority action activity under ACT-EU. And then there bridges the gap between stakeholders and the program. The events, together with other engagement tools and the creation of an advisory group, when these come together, we have a platform. Of course, obviously, there's some, the procedures that need to be developed to see how we actually work together, mandate rules of procedure and so forth. But really, these are the elements that can form the multi-stakeholder platform. If I could have the next slide. Thank you. So the advisory group, which sits between the program and the stakeholders. It's a group that's represented by key stakeholder groups. We're thinking, patients and consumers, healthcare professionals, academics, industry, trade associations, funders. We want it to be an inclusive group that enables the dialogue with the regulators. And when we talk about we're talking about the stakeholders and being members of the group and the regulators. When we do this call for nomination, it will go to stakeholders, not to the regulators. The idea is that the advisory group supports the running of the platform by strategically providing input to the program, telling the ACT-EU steering group where they see that there are priorities from their perspective that need to be addressed by ACT-EU, and what are the suitable ways to engage. But also operationally working with the priority actions of ACT-EU, and this advisory group will have representation from the different areas of ACT-EU to identify who are the best placed experts to support the activity of the program. So if we're talking about scientific advice and developing a consolidated scientific advice process, the advisory group should be able to tell us, for this particular multi-stakeholder event, you need to be reaching out to these particular experts, from the patient side, from the academic organization side, etc. So identifying experts is operationally very important, and then to support on if there's a need to create topic-specific initiatives to support us on understanding what's the best way to reach out. These would be things that we'd be asking the steering group. If I could have the steering group, sorry, the advisory group. If I could have the next slide. So as I said, we want this to be, we want to be inclusive. We're starting off thinking about having about 20 stakeholder permanent representatives that are selected via a public call for expression of interest that Maria will now talk about. We want the group to be functional. So we don't want it to be so big that we can't have good dialogue, but we don't want abilities for stakeholders to join and have their voices heard. So we're thinking along the lines of 4 representatives per stakeholder group, as I mentioned, industry, EU trade organizations, patients and consumers, including the PCWP, healthcare professionals, including HCPWP, academia and research funders. I'll go to the last bullet point. It's worth highlighting the ad hoc participation of other regulators, including ethics committees, international authorities, or other stakeholders based on the agenda topics, would also be possible. But the core group, let's say we're thinking of these 5 stakeholder groups, and then depending on the agenda, we would bring in other regulators if needed, ethics committees, other stakeholders, etc. We want to have 2 co-chairs selected, and I think Maria will go into this a little bit more. And then, as I mentioned before, we would bring in the representativeness also from, obviously, the priority actions. So if we're talking about developing public health emergencies, we'd have the colleagues working in the emergency task force under Act EU, working together with the advice, or having a dialogue with the advisory group on what way do we want, to steer this. I think that completes my slides. Maybe I'd like to give the floor to Maria, and she goes into a little bit more detail about what's going to happen next.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Indeed, no, stay on this slide just for a little bit more. Just to remark that this is a proposal under discussion, meaning that we are having a meeting of the ACT-EU steering group next week, where we will discuss and hopefully agree the proposal. And that's why bear in mind that things might slightly evolve depending on the discussion. Before telling you a little bit more about the call for expression of interest, I just want to emphasize the fact that although this group initially is meant to be small because we wanted to understand how the dynamics will work, and in the future we can expand it, just to remind you that this is only one part of the multi-stakeholder platform, and that whoever is not formally participating in the meeting of the advisory group will have others opportunity with the multi-stakeholder workshop events organized under priority actions and the other engagement tools that Anna presented at the beginning. But nevertheless, this is how we want to start, and then based on the experience gathered, we will then hopefully evolve. I was talking about the call for expression of interest in being part of the group. This call will be public, so open to everyone. We will probably take the same approach we took for the public consultation on the concept paper. So we will publish the call on the website in addition to targeted emails that we can send via our stakeholder liaisons and the stakeholder database. And the idea is to have to gather all the nomination, and then we will basically evaluate each nomination in terms of representativeness for the stakeholder groups, in addition to the area we want to be representatives in the advisory group area, meaning the sector of interest of the specific organization, and also the EU-EEA geographical location. So the idea is to have a group that could represent Europe and that could represent each the stakeholder group, so that the discussion is balanced and that everyone's view is represented. And as Anna said, the regulators are not part of the group, but are participating to the meeting of the group themselves. Next slide. The group is supported by a secretariat. EMA is providing the initial support, and the secretariat will represent the link between the advisory group and the steering group. So when the advisory group meets and gives its advice, or the advice can be also written, the secretariat will be responsible to then channel it to the steering group that can take it into account for their decision. The group is meant to meet at least twice a year, excluding the annual multi-stakeholder platform meeting similar to the one we had in June. Meeting will be virtual or hybrid, plus any additional meeting or written consultation is foreseen. This really depends on the need that we need to consult on, what the priority action needs to know from stakeholders. And we are working on a draft mandate and rules of procedures. This will be basically agreed with the group once this is formed, and so potentially presented afterwards once the group itself agrees with its own mandate. Next slide. And so the timelines and the next steps is to, in September, endorse the proposal by the ACT-EU steering group, so that in October we can launch the public call for expression of interest. So between October and November, the idea is to have the call and then start the revision of all the nomination, with the idea, I hope it can happen, that in December we have the group established and potentially have one meeting of the group already in December to meet everyone, to start discussing on the mandate of the group. And also, as Anna said, we have two chairs. One will be probably from the ACT-EU regulatory co-chair, it's called, and the other one will be elected from the actual advisory group. So the meeting in December is also to launch this call and discuss who could be the co-chair, in addition to hopefully agreement on the meetings for next year, so that everyone has the overview of what's going to happen, and based on that the availability can be decided. So I stop here. Of course, so my main message is keep a note on your emails. You will receive plenty of emails in addition to publication, to be really, consider your nomination and be part of the group. Thank you.